Welcome to Iron Age Marketing, your weekly dose of inspiration and wisdom, helping coaches, creatives, and business owners alike build authority and generate leads through podcasting. I'm Nikki P, and welcome. Welcome, everyone, to the new and improved Iron Age Marketing. I'm here today with my good friend Lance Cayko. Lance is an architect with F9 Productions out in, I believe, Denver. That's where we're at.
Yeah, Denver, Boulder. Yep.
Okay. And he has the position in my role of being probably the longest business owner I know with a podcast. And one of the things, it's just the longevity. 8 years, I think is what we said you've been at it.
Yeah, a long time, 8 years. Yeah, you got it. Almost, and pretty soon it'll be 9. Oh my gosh, yeah.
So the first question is, like, you were obviously way in the front of this game. Almost a decade ago at this point. Why did you start? What was the whole point? And like, it's normal today that people do the business podcast, but back then it wasn't. It was entertainment podcasts were the rage, and people hadn't really started utilizing that in that fashion.
Well, I just got to say again, thank you for like the flattering. I always feel, Nick, that I'm a little bit behind the ball. But if I'm ahead, that makes me feel really good. I needed to hear that today. So the reason why we started it is because we got to year 7 of our business. So we started our business, our architecture. We have multiple businesses, but the first business we started was an architecture business in 2010. Then we started Inside the Firm podcast in 2017. And it really comes down to the number 7. So in the business world, as you probably know, and many in the business world who are listening to this know, within the first 7 years, you're still in the incubator period. You're still technically a startup. And that's when most businesses fail. And the closer you get to year 7 and then beyond it, the more established you are, and then the less you have less of a chance of failing after that. So we got to year 7 and we went, we're kind of on like a little, you sort of get to these little hilltops, these false summits is what I call them in business. Is you're like, you get to a false summit, and then I'm a big hiker, so I always use these analogies, and then you look up and you're like, oh, just kidding, we got to keep hiking. And but that 7 years is really one of the first ones, and you go, oh, we haven't failed yet. We're actually doing pretty good. We should, and we were almost at that same time too, we were about to start our first real estate development, which is really kind of the end goal, was for us to get to and establish a vertically integrated business model where we had an architecture company, then a contracting company, and then a real estate development. And at that point, like if you're in the real estate world, that's besides you. As a matter of fact, my wife was our realtor, so really it was like truly this ecosystem of like everybody's getting paid for every part of the whole process and making these buildings happen. And we were like, man, we got to tell our story. We got to tell our story. And at the same time too, and I was much more like politically active at the same time, and I wanted to be vocal about it, coming from, I would say, the libertarian right and being very pro-capitalist, and then seeing a lot of the media shrieking and trying to force feed down on millennials and Gen Z, like, anti-capitalism and a much more like socialist ideas, and really defeatism. The defeatism is what really bugged me. Is I'm like, what? You're telling me, as a sort of in between millennial and Gen X person who came from nothing? I mean, I grew up in a town of 500 people in Northwest North Dakota, first person to graduate with a bachelor's degree, first in the whole family. Nobody even talked about graduate degrees. And I've made it down here and made a successful business, and like grew up and socialized healthcare and medicine as a, part Native American person. And you're going to sit here and tell me, media, that like the American dream is dead? I'm like, I am the American dream. And I just really, my business partner and I wanted to share that message with everybody else of like hope and prosperity, and just be a beacon of light and do what a lot of people weren't doing in the architecture community at that time. We were definitely, I think, like the second to do it. The first one is, I have to give a shout out to Mark LaPage of the Entree Architect podcasting community. He's kind of the pioneer in the sphere that he and I, and he gravitates towards us. I mean, I've got him on my cell phone. I can text him personally. He's sort of the Joe Rogan of the architecture podcasting world. And because what he did is, I tell him that all the time, and he's pretty flattered. And he was just opening up the vest and talking about business as if it was not a dirty word in the architecture world. Because there's so many architects who are just capital A. We're here to be artists more than we are business people. And they don't teach you business in architecture school. Frankly, they shouldn't. I mean, I'm very much of that. I've, as a professor as well, at 2 different universities here and there, and having done it for like 13 years at CU Boulder, I'm like, no, I don't think. At first, I thought maybe they should teach business, and I'm like, no, you should teach design, technical skills, and all that. And I do think business should be taught in, like, on the job. But the beautiful and through this form right here, exactly what we're doing, talking business, is like, yeah, that's right. It's right here. Like, this is the information age. You should be seeking out that way. So that was our primary reason for starting the show. And then we also wanted to make sure I wanted to document the whole thing selfishly, because I have this lofty idea of getting a book together at some point. And now, actually, with the rise of AI, like, I kind of have thought about a methodology and how to do it. So yeah.
Mine's supposed to come out next month, so
Oh, there you go.
I'll if you need any pointers on how to
I will
turn
reach out.
something into, we'll talk. Well, it's funny you say what you said, because a lot of what you were finding out, at that 7-year mark in your career, is what so many other business owners are finding. One of the things that happened in the past decade is, it's if you were to go to my LinkedIn right now, one of the things I label myself as is a post corporate marketer, and a lot of it is because you have every corporation in the world, they're all congealing in these terrible ideas that most people don't agree with, and they're trying to browbeat the rest of the world into not thinking it's okay to talk about them. And what they did is they made it so no corporation can be trusted. And your ability to open up, it's like basically everyone right now is fighting to prove their authenticity, to prove that they have, they're not scumbags, basically. So exactly what you were trying to do is have my own voice in this space, even if it's selfish, just be out here. That now is like, that's the gold standard. Everyone's trying to do that. That's why podcasting in the business space has become such a big deal. Like you were talking about saturation. If we're talking about trying to be like the next Joe Rogan, sure, yeah, there's probably a saturation that's happened there. But when you're talking about having, I wrote a paper on this back in 2006 about how podcasting was going to be the next thing in advertising when I was in college. Completely forgot about the paper for many years. But what's funny is all the things that I saw back in 2006 was the potential. It was all about the relationship development with the business and their audience. You don't need to have 10,000 people listening to your podcast. It's the important thing is that what you're putting out resonates with the people that are going to be, listening. It's in such it lets you control the narrative. Like people have said, like, it's going to be impossible to call me a lot of names and back it up, because I've got 10 million hours of me talking on the internet at this point, that there's nothing you can say. Like, look, you can go and listen to me rant and rave. Sure, there might be things you don't like, but there's no questions about what I think on anything, because I've probably said it on about every topic at this point. It's a transparency that like business would never give you, that now we're in this, the solopreneur world, but like just a world where business owners say, look, I'm a person too, and you can trust me, like, because you can know me. I put it out there for you to know. So it's interesting that you were seeing that, 8-9 years ago when you started. Now, as far as with the business, obviously, I can see you've had like like 2 tracks within the podcast. It looks like 2 episodes or something like that a week that you put out. How did all that develop? Is like, what has really changed from that initial start to where you're at now? Because I mean, doing anything for almost a decade, it's going to get old and stale if you're the same thing forever.
Oh yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, that's, before we started recording, that's what I was saying. Is I was like, one of the things I was lamenting about is it's a slog. It's a beautiful slog. It reminds me of a deep hike, and then there's a reward at the end. You just try to keep the faith, and there, that do that sort of thing. Nothing big rewards come from hard work and dedication and discipline and all of that. So the first when we first started, it was just one show a week. It was the Friday show was the original Inside the Firm podcast, and it was just as the name says, we're a little obtuse with it, right? Like we're bringing you inside the firm, all of them, and telling you how the interoperating structure works, a lot of stuff that just people were afraid to talk about. It was like, what do we have to lose? What do we? And then we didn't even know, like, what do we have to gain? We just had to do it. There was a big, just personal feeling and a push from inside and sharing and all of that. And we're also just, Al and I are big proponents of like it seems like the more positivity and openness and just telling the truth that you put out there, there's a reciprocating effect that happens just in life, the universe, God, whatever kind of noun you need to put on it for yourself to believe that works, but it seems like it's true. And so at about it was about right after the development we were done, so it would have been podcasting um for 4 or 5 years at that point, right? Yeah, about 4 or 5 years, maybe even less than that. So we started in 2017, would have been four, about 2020, 2021 is when I started. And it was helpful, actually. They're like, COVID sucked, but one of the beautiful things, what it was like, now everybody's on Zoom. All of a sudden, finally, everybody pushed to Zoom, Teams, whatever. Online meetings were so much more, less avant-garde and more mainstream. So it made getting guests much easier. And I had always wanted to just interview people and selfishly just pick their brain was one of the big things. And then I was also trying to diversify the podcast, like you said, because it was stale. So I came up with the idea that, like, let's do I was a huge Bill Burr fan at one point. All right, and he would do the weren't we all? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, then his brain broke. Uh
Well, the world changed. I'll give him that.
yeah.
His new way in the world wasn't my way in the world.
Yeah. His I can't remember, he had a Monday show. That's what it was called, something Bill Burr Monday something.
It was just the Monday morning podcast, I believe.
That's what it was, the Monday morning podcast with Bill Burr. And I was like, oh, we should do, how about I do the opposite on the opposite end of the Friday show? I'll do Monday morning coffee inside the firm. Start your week with us, right? Just, you're going to go on the commute and listen to us. And I started reaching out to whoever would be on the show right away. And the idea was keep, 20, 30-minute interviews, and had some political figures on there, had Spike Cohen, had John McAfee, the late, great John McAfee, and then a bunch of just local business people who I was interested in talking to for whatever reason. And then I got on Podmatch, and it kind of changed everything, actually. And Podmatch has been sort of life-changing for me. I mean, I really can't give it enough of a shout out. It's not, it doesn't cost a lot of money. And then eventually the final evolution was, so now with the show is so popular that I'm turning way more guests down than I'm allowing, to the point where, like, maybe we're starting to think about appearance fees and all of that. But then something else magical kind of happened about, I think 2 or 3 years ago is when it was really started, probably 3 at this point. Is then the final evolution was, I was like, I'm pretty good at interviewing people. I feel like I get compliments. Listeners will text or email a great episode or leave a comment on YouTube. And I was like, I think I'm accomplished enough. Maybe I should start just guesting on shows too as a public figure. So through the podcast, because of just we set enough, if you do this for long enough, you're an authority in the space. And people look at you as like a professional speaker, and then you notice too, like, a lot of I'm pretty fluid with my speech. There's not a lot of uhs, ums, and all the other nonsense. And I started guesting on shows, and now I get reached out to all the time for people. I have to turn them down. It's hard. I really am also turning more people down than I'm allowing my space on, and that's been incredibly fulfilling personally. Because then I will get people will link in with me, or they'll email me and they'll go, hey, I heard you on so and so show, and I just got to tell you, like, I needed to hear that today. Or just like the original show does, we'll get emails or text calls, or once in a while fans will sometimes just show up to the office and they'll say, hey, it changed my life. I started a business. I quit my job. Thank you. But, like, you were totally inspirational and that kind of stuff. So that's sort of this whole full circle kind of feedback loop.
I'm amused by that. It's like, so that's when you start really doing guesting, because I'm pretty sure I had you on a podcast about 7 years ago talking about gophers.
Yeah, and consistently, I will say this, you did exactly. I was one of the first ones I was on, and I got a taste of it. But yeah, I mean, I love guesting, and I just do it way more consistently now.
Oh, it's. I mean, I love doing it. We all love it. It's fun to go and just. I love talking to people, and that's the one consistent benefit that I don't care what anyone gets out of this, especially within the business world. Like, it may, for some people, like, be useful to like their straight numbers, but the value of the relationship building that you do in the podcast space, like, there's absolutely nothing that replaces that. Going through the process of just meeting, talking to new people is invaluable on so many levels. uh, that being said, I am curious, for someone who's as busy as you are, and as tied in, there has to be some sort of value aside from just the people value to the business to do the podcast. And I'm curious what that looks like for you guys.
Well, monetarily, I mean, was right behind me, or sorry, in front of me actually. Behind the camera here is like a 7 foot wide Dell monitor, and at one point Dell was a sponsor for us for 2 years. So monetarily wise, like that's one good example is they bought our entire staff laptops. So that was like tens of thousands of dollars of investment from Dell, which was huge, which is really huge for us. We've had other corporate sponsors in the architectural world that have where we end up basically paying for our rent, which it's our own ecosystem, right? Like I own the building, but then one company rents from us, the other corporation. You do that whole thing. Pays for our rent, pays for our mortgage on the office building, which is kind of huge, right? So we're in a downturn, especially like right now. It hasn't been that great of a year in the construction world, in the architecture world. It's just been okay, pretty flat. We're in this hangover, right, from all the money printing and COVID and everything, and we're hopefully pulling out of it. But
Let's say
that's
we're
what,
talking about more money printing the last I saw, but
yeah. So yeah, we have, and right now our one corporate sponsor is ArcCat. They've been with us the longest. It's basically an online web service for architects and builders and contractors. You can download like CAD files and specifications for products and stuff like that. And like I said, on the tip of the iceberg, sort of where we're headed next is appearance fees. I think the show is so popular right now that people are reaching out. As a matter of fact, Al just booked somebody. He said, "Look, we're booked out for a while, but and at this point, it's hard to get in, and here's what we were thinking of for an appearance fee." And it was kind of a no-brainer for that guest who's trying to get into the podcast world. So and then the other thing it's done is it's two other things. It's puts you in a sense of authority, right? So if people, like you were saying, Nick, if people want to research me, because there's a lot of folks who move to Colorado because it's the destination state. So then if they're moving from like Florida or something like that, they buy a house here, they don't know anybody, they're looking for an architect, and they find us through Google, but then they really want to go deeper of like who they're actually getting in bed with. I mean, there's just hours and hours and hours and hours, and like some really fascinating stuff that I've done is, because I don't know if every service does this, but I know with YouTube it works this way. So, and most podcasts at this point are actually putting their stuff on YouTube because YouTube is recognizing it as a podcast and like a category and everything. And it'll transcribe it.
the reason that started is because it's the second biggest search engine in the world. So if you're not there, you're not, like, why? How are you leaving that off the table? So everything moved to video during COVID because that was that.
Yep. And so that YouTube will transcribe automatically everything. And so now if you go, what I've noticed is like since the rise of Grok and ChatGPT and all these other which are also search engines in a sense, when I go independently, what I've done in the past couple of years especially with Grok is like I will start a new Grok account, and then I will say pretend like you don't, I'll just start looking myself up and see what comes back, so I can see like, oh, what do I look like, and it's kind of impressive. because so anyways, it just speaks more to like the authority on it. The last thing is the connections. You can leverage your podcast in the business world by bringing on, let's say for us, for example, a real easy one is like when I bring on like an engineer to the show that's local, they just the loyalty that we get from them after that, they're like, "Ooh, I was on this podcast." They kind of feel like a little celebrity, and then when they go get because sometimes engineers will get contacted for architectural services, they can't do it obviously. And they go, "Oh no, I was just hey, go reach out to Lance in that sort of a way." Or realtors is another good one to have on if like in my space anyway. And a lot of people, that's a really beautiful way to leverage your show is to have people that you want to network with on your show, talk and give them a little bit of a spotlight. Pick their brain though, just pick their personal life up a little bit. Hey, what do you do for fun? Regular stuff. And then also start talking about like the business in general, and then you can drill down on like, where can people follow you? The very standard stuff. But that experience is so unique for them. If they're not doing it often like me and you, Nick, it's a huge thing that can boost your network.
Well, hence why my business is helping small business people get into podcasting, because if nothing, the thing I tell anyone is, if nothing else, doing a weekly podcast is an excuse to send an email once a week to your email list and keep top of mind. If that was the only thing that you ever got out of it, that's marketing value that a lot of people never see, because they go to the computer on Monday morning. I want to communicate, but what do I say? Well, here, just go tell them, go watch this conversation I had. And like, then you get into like the micro content that you can build out of that for all of your social media and everything. It's the one thing that like you do this one thing, and there's so much that can be built off of that to help grow your visibility with just minor, especially with all the AI stuff that helps now. Like, you don't need to necessarily have an entire marketing team to do a lot of leverage on a little bit of content. Um, let's see, this is something you said, and I'm trying to recall back to what it was. While you're talking, so when you do the show, who are you reaching out to with the show itself? Like, what is your goal audience?
Oh gosh, yeah. The goal audience would be just on other entrepreneurs. And they can be within the architecture sphere, which then people would go like, okay, are they competitors? Sure, some are probably competitors at that point. Are we giving them like what's the danger in that, right? Like then I think that people have just run this mental exercise and are like, oh, am I giving them like insider information? Like not really to the point where they would proprietary. They're not getting proprietary stuff and all of that. But then the opposite edge of that sword is like, well, we sell. Oh, here we go. I forgot to tell you this. The other monetary thing we do is we've built several courses and pieces of software then that we sell to the architecture community that listens to our show. RevitRocketship.com is where like you can go there, you can download our template that we use in our CAD software, and you can learn the software and become a better, faster architect who makes more money. We did a course where it's called Architect's Guide to. It's the Architect to Builder course. So we try to have people emulate what we did, where we're like, hey, yes, you do okay as an architect, but you can make a lot more money and have a much more sustainable business if you're also a builder like we are. So that's how we sort of tackle the bad side of the sword with that for the good side. And then there's just a lot of entrepreneurs and tangential people that listen to us. Like I said, the engineering community is pretty big. The contracting community is pretty big. And then just business people. And we've had actually then even other architects who are listeners get contacted. Like, for example, one was like maybe 7 or 8 years ago right away. They have a practice down in the middle of Denver, and they got a client that was on the other side of Denver, even further north than us. And they were like, I'm not interested in the project. Seems like a good project, but we're just too busy right now. It's too far away from us. We referred you, and then we got the project. So there's been a lot of that too, where you just put your name out there. It's another form of marketing that you really sometimes don't know where it's going to take you, but at least, like you said, Nick, you're top of mind. You're top of mind.
I do find it funny that you mention, well, yeah, there are competition maybe, and you don't know this, but at the time of recording, but the first episode of like the revamping of this podcast I did, I literally had a guy who has a company doing the exact same thing I did on as a guest, because one of the, I'm sure you'll appreciate this, is that from the world that we come from, we don't look at everything as zero sum. Like his customers and my customers are just not going to be the same by virtue of we're both, because we're so much a part of our product. I'm not going to steal his people because the people that would come to me would never go to him. You know, we're only going to attract the people that are attracted to us and want to work with us. So if I have my competitor on, it doesn't change my equation one bit. You might have people that know him, they come over like, oh, well now that's my guy because I resonate with that more than over here. Like I'm a nerdy guy who's into Dungeons and Dragons. He's a guy who's into, Philadelphia sports teams, and maybe we probably would like have a lot to talk about other than we do the same thing. And the people that are going to gravitate to either one of them are just, they're going to be different for different reasons. So I don't have any fear of, talking to a competitor. I can only benefit both of us, frankly.
Yeah. Well, that's another that's like I think a lot of how about this? There's a gal, her name is Danilda with Dope Architecture in Denver. And we had been hot shots winning this award and been being a finalist for 3 years in a row. We lost last year to her, but this award is called the Best of Mile High. So it's best in customer service. It's based on all your online ratings. And I was confident we were going to win again, like a third year. I took my daughter to the ceremony. She crushed us. And I go, I got to meet this. I got to meet this woman. Like, what a powerhouse. I got to meet this woman. Like, what is the deal here? Because then I went and looked at her website. And I was like, it seems like she actually only does interior architecture. Like, if she's that popular online, I bet she gets a lot of inquiries and turns a lot of work down. And I bet if I went and took her out to lunch and convinced her, like, it's because, like, when you refer somebody,
We're
boy,
complementary. We're not enemies.
yeah, and you're putting a lot of trust into the idea that you can refer somebody, right? Because you're putting your own name on the line. And I was like, what a better way. I don't even have to convince her because I'm like, hey, we're both Best of Mile High finalists, buds. You won. I won 2 years in a row. Like, we're the best. Like, why wouldn't you refer me? And we've gotten, I think, 3 jobs this last year from her referrals, big ones. It was like amazing. Yeah. So like this idea that there's this, in the same sphere, you guys, you can't play along.
Well, I don't want to take up any more of your time because you're a busy guy. We're all busy people. I want to thank you so much for coming on here, Lance? And is there anything that you want to say before I let you go? Where do you want to send people to check you out if they're interested?
Oh, they got to check out the fishing channel. Don't think it's just all business with me. You got to go to YouTube, Fishing with Lance. We're Colorado's #1. Subscribe to.
I was gonna mention it, but I'm like, there's no way we're getting out of here without Lance mentioning the fishing channel.
Yeah, go check it out. I take everybody on these crazy high alpine adventures. I just did it'll come out in a week or two, a 16-mile round trip with literally one of my newer best friends who is also an architecture and building client. He's 67 and we went on this awesome adventure.
It's a good looking fish. That's all I know.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again. And everybody, y'all have a good day.